Mr. Shorten's slip came in responding to persistent questioning at a daily news conference. The reporters following the leaders are being tough interrogators, refusing to take no answer for an answer, which is good. On the other side, Peter Dutton's sledging his disabled opponent was a whopping own goal, as well as being appalling of itself. Labour is still looking strong as clouds gather. The difference in the import of these mistakes, however, is that Mr. Shorten is the opposition leader knocking on the prime ministerial door, carrying a bag of controversial policies, with some voters still making up their minds about him. Mr. Dutton is just running for survival in Dixon. The takeout from week 1 of the campaign is that while Mr. Shorten was less sure-footed than expected, you'd still rather be in his shoes than Mr. Morrison's. A Victorian Liberal finds no evidence of any change since Christmas. Another Liberal believes there is a tightening. I'm not predicting a win, but Labour's definitely feeling the pressure, starting to get a bit nervous. Contrast 2016, when the general view was Labour would lose. This time, with the opposite expectation, a loss would be devastating for Mr. Shorten and disastrous for a party that's chosen to make itself a very big target. Expectations on Shorten are sky high. The superannuation glitch will fade, but Mr. Shorten is more fundamentally vulnerable over Labour's commitment to an ambitious emissions reduction policy. The Liberals will ramp up a massive post-Easter assault on this. How convincingly Mr. Shorten can counter, as well as business's reaction, will be crucial to the campaign's next stage. Later in the campaign, Labour's costings and fiscal bottom line, it will have bigger projected surpluses than the government, will be both a test of its economic credibility and an opportunity to diffuse the coalition's scare about a shortened government's hand on the economy. Incidentally, one scare missing in any serious sense so far has been over border security. The government might have hoped to wheel this out as a result of the medevac legislation. It warned of an influx, amid the fanfare of reopening Christmas Island. But as far as we know, no one has come under that legislation. Apart from the deterrent effect of Christmas Island, presumably those offshore and their supporters want to deny the government easy access to a scare that could boost its chances of re-election. An analysis of the first week done by Andrew Hughes, from the Australian National University's Research School of Management, found an extremely high 93% of Liberal ads on Facebook were negative, although the limited advertising in the mainstream media was more positive. Labour are going for a far more positive campaign, be it on social or traditional media, Mr. Hughes writes in RDNews. What negative advertising Labour has been running uses Tony Abbott and Peter Dutton to remind voters of the coup against Malcolm Turnbull. Usually week 1 is marked by a debate about debates. Leaders' debates used to be important to contenders and media. Not now. One has been lined up in Perth by the West Australian for Monday week, Mr. Shorten agreed but sounded reluctant. But so far nothing has been arranged in the East. The National Press Club says it has a submission in and is waiting for the parties to respond. Often it is the opposition leader who's anxious for a face-to-face encounter, because it can be a chance to best the incumbent. But for Mr. Shorten, the favorite, the risk may be greater than the opportunity. Campaign holiday hides dangers. This public holiday-heavy campaign is further complicated by Anzac Day, on Thursday, after which the pace will really accelerate. The parties can't afford just to build their campaigns to a peak in the final week. They need also to give attention to the early voters. One theory is that some disillusioned voters will get to the polling stations quickly, so they can then switch off the whole uninspiring spectacle. The public benchmark against which any movement resulting from the first week will be judged is Labour's 52 to 48% margin in the news poll conducted after the election was announced. In that poll, the coalition had lifted its primary vote a point to 39%. To win, however, this needs to be in the low 40s. In 2016 the government just held on with a primary of 42%. The Liberals claim there is a big soft vote out there, people who are not firmly locked in. Polling does not simply measure the progress in a campaign, it affects it. If the coalition closed the gap in news poll to trail 49 to 51%, that would change the dynamics significantly, especially as Labour is exposed in several of its own seats. If, despite Labour's comfortable lead in the polls through the parliamentary term, this battle becomes line ball, the spectre of a hung parliament comes into distant view. That would be a very long shot, but one with a lot of downsides as an outcome. Michelle Groudon is a professorial fellow at the University of Canberra and chief political correspondent at The Conversation, where this article first appeared.